everybody. I'm Ashleigh Banfield, and this is Drop Dead Serious. It was day 18 of the Karen Read trial, and if you're keeping count, that means we are 5 weeks into this thing, if you count jury selection, which I always do. But day 18 delivered some new revelations on every front. We heard from DNA scientists, a digital forensics expert, and we saw the defense go after a prosecution witness, and hard. I mean, wait for this one, folks. I am going to describe this thing to you of what happened. I mean, you can apply every verb you want. Shredded, eviscerated, pummeled, destroyed. You get where I'm going? I'm going to take you there, but it is worth the wait. Then also, this person that was shredded, eviscerated, pummeled wasn't just like ripped up on his analysis. He was ripped up on his credentials too. And it was like really, really embarrassing. Wait for it. It'll be great. And then by the end of the day, it wasn't clear whether the prosecution had just strengthened their case or if they'd introduced a brand new problem for their case. So let's start from the top, and I will let you know this. We have the Atlas cam. We finally got the Atlas cam up in the podcast studio. I don't know if you've heard him every so often snort or cough in the background, but he's at my feet always at every single broadcast and every single podcast. And so finally we got the Atlas cam, and he's completely cashed out, having the time of his life. So let's start. The first witness was Nicholas Bradford, a DNA expert with Bodhi Technology. Prosecutor Adam Lally walked him through what he found on the taillight of Karen Read's SUV. And Mr. Bradford told the jury that he found DNA that most likely came from John O'Keefe, along with 2 unidentified individuals. He also looked at whether the DNA could belong to Massachusetts state police officers Yuri Buchanan and Michael Proctor, and his answer was no. Bradford said the evidence showed strong support for excluding both of those cops as possible contributors. But on cross-examination, defense attorney Alan Jackson pointed out a huge omission. The DNA expert wasn't asked to test the DNA against any of the other men Karen Read's team suggested could be involved in John O'Keefe's death. Not Brian Higgins, not Brian Albert, not Kevin Albert, and not former Canton Police Chief Kenneth Berkowitz. Karen's lawyer also asked the DNA expert about how excluded Michael Proctor really was. And Bradford explained it was 76,000 times more likely that the DNA came from 3 unknown individuals than from Michael Proctor himself and 2 unknowns. And then came the next witness, Carl Miyasako, also with Bodhi Technology. He's a senior DNA analyst, and his job was to examine a hair that investigators recovered from the back quarter panel of Karen Read's SUV. The DNA analyst testified that the hair was a mitochondrial DNA match for John O'Keefe. Under cross-examination, the DNA analyst admitted, "I can't exclude anyone maternally related to John O'Keefe." And then came the prosecution's next witness, Shanon Burgess, a digital forensics expert with a private crash reconstruction firm called Aperture. The expert told the jury that his job was to analyze the data that was pulled from Karen Read's SUV, specifically the infotainment system. Now, he wasn't the one who did the original download, but after reviewing the raw data, he said something big had been missed: the user data. And that means things like contacts, device connections, and most importantly, timestamps for when the car was turned on and off. The expert said this was a mistake, possibly because the chip that stores the data wasn't read properly, or maybe because it was missed altogether. He walked the jury through how his team tested a similar vehicle to make sure their method worked before analyzing the actual SD card from Karen's car. And according to his findings, the car's first power-on event of the night on January 29th, 2022, happened at 12:12 a.m. and then powered off at 12:42 a.m. He then used this data to compare timestamps from the SUV to data from John O'Keefe's iPhone, which had been tracking his location using the Waze app. And here's where things got technical, but I am going to try to keep it very simple. The expert said there's always a small difference in clocks between, various devices. Like your watch could be different from your Alexa at home. Your clock on your bedside table could be different from your TV. In this case, he calculated a 21 to 29 second variance between the car's clock and the iPhone, John's iPhone. And that matters because according to his analysis, the SUV backed up, went into reverse and backed up at exactly 12:31:43 a.m. That's on its internal clock. And once you adjust for that variance, it would have happened sometime between 12:32:04 and 12:32:12 in the a.m. And that window, it includes the last moment that John O'Keefe's phone was active at 12:32:09. So that's pretty damning for Karen Reid, right? If it matches up, his last active time with his phone matches up exactly with the time that Karen Reid's car is flying in reverse, I mean, that's going to look really bad for the defendant here. That's an uphill climb, you would think, for her lawyers. And we'd be wrong. This is where it pays to have good lawyers. And not just good lawyers, good investigators, like people who know what to look for, how deep to peel the layers back. And Karen's attorneys and her team did that. So Karen's lawyer, Robert Alessi, started by challenging this expert on something critical: bias, right? We all have it. Believe it or not, science isn't just science. Sometimes science has bias, especially if you're coming at it with one perspective and then trying to prove that perspective. So the lawyer asked the digital forensic expert whether he had referred to this case as a, quote, motor vehicle homicide before doing any of the actual testing. And guess what the expert said? Yeah, the expert admitted that he had. And that's a problem because the medical examiner has never ruled this case a homicide, right? The official cause of death is still, quote, undetermined, end quote. And then Karen's lawyer turned to the expert's qualifications. And what happened next was a bloodbath. It was brutal. It was uncomfortable. It was really, really good lawyering, but it just felt like David and Goliath, right? So the lawyer asked the expert about his resume, right? Karen's lawyer is now going after this guy and how smart he is, or not smart. And the lawyer pointed out that in multiple places, it said the expert had a bachelor's of general science in mathematics and business administration. But that may not be entirely accurate, as in not accurate at all. And under oath, this expert had to admit to a packed courtroom and then, to people like me who podcasted afterwards, that in fact it was not true. Yeah, that's embarrassing. Yeah, my resume and the credentials I have, my, bachelor's degree, it's not true. And that was a moment for the defense, right? A moment. Entering into evidence all the things that made this expert a so-called expert: his resume, his bio on the Aperture website, as well as his LinkedIn page.
Are you notified when someone electronically accesses your LinkedIn account?
Not accesses, no. Are you referring to viewing?
Yes, that's a better verb, yeah. Viewing. Yes.
Yes.
So you're notified. Were you notified within the last 72 hours that someone from the defense accessed your publicly available or viewed your publicly available LinkedIn account?
No, I was not aware.
Are you aware that within the last 72 hours that hyperlink on Aperture's official website was disabled?
No, I was not aware.
Are you aware that now if you try to go on that link that you can't, that it's disabled?
No, I'm not aware of that.
Do you know whether anyone from Aperture directed someone within Aperture to disable your LinkedIn account within the last 72 hours?
No, I'm not.
Have you spoken to anybody at Aperture about your LinkedIn account?
No, I have not.
As it turned out, this expert currently only has an associate's degree. And as for that bachelor's degree, on his resume, he listed his graduation date as 2018. But on the stand, the expert said that degree is still in progress. The expert said the 2018 graduation date on his CV was a mistake, and he hadn't updated it because he never graduated. And on a different CV, it listed the expert's graduation date as 2022, and then it just got worse from there.
Are you aware that there's no degree at the University of Alabama, Birmingham, called a Bachelor of General Science in Mathematics and Business Administration?
Yes, I am. And that is one of the errors I identified.
So you would agree that there's not even a degree called Bachelor of General Science in Mathematics and Business Administration offered at the University of Alabama, correct?
Correct. That should be Bachelor of General Studies with minor in Mathematics and Business Administration.
And what you just articulated, you do not possess as you sit here today, correct?
That is correct.
What you possess is an associate's degree, correct?
Correct.
And when did you obtain that associate's degree?
So that would have been 2015.
So I have seen experts on the stand have their credentials questioned. I have seen lawyers come after so-called scientists or experts and say, oh, I mean, what do you really know about this? Or what is this science? Is it junk science? Do people call it junk science? Like, how good is your work anyway? And how long have you really worked? I just don't think I've had this happen in a case that I have followed where an expert is on the stand and is just completely shredded to bits. Like, is made out to be a faker, a phony, a liar, right? An educational liar. You know, it's he's listed this whole science and mathematics degree that he does not have. And it's on LinkedIn and it's on the company website. It's in 3 different places. It's really not easy to try to make that sound okay. It's hard to make it sound okay to the grilling lawyer in front of you. It's hard to make it okay for the jury that's over there. And then that whole gallery behind you and those cameras, like that is also not cool. Yeah. But it went from worse to worser.
If I did the math correctly, sir, you've been pursuing a Bachelor of Science degree for 17 years, correct?
That is correct.
And you have not obtained it as you sit here today.
That is correct.
And yet there are the various documents that we've seen that state that you have obtained the Bachelor of Science, correct?
Again, with errors or misinterpretation.
Karen's lawyer even had to explain the word mendacity to him before asking if he was familiar with the term academic dishonesty. And the expert said he was. And then Karen's lawyer questioned the expert about a supplemental report that he had filed in the middle of this trial, a report that the defense did not even receive until May 11th.
Pursuant to your request, that's a request you're referring to of Mr. Brennan, correct?
Correct.
I have completed an additional analysis concerning the above referenced matter. To formulate opinions, the following additional items were reviewed. This wasn't done on your initiative. You put in writing you did it at the request of Mr. Brennan. Which is it?
So that was on my own initiative. This is a holdover, so a copy and paste from my original report.
You're explaining the May 8th report in your language pursuant to your request as a cut and paste from a previous report?
Yes, I am.
Do you cut and paste important information from one report to the other without checking it for accuracy?
I copy and paste certain portions.
Do you ever review what you cut and paste to see if it's accurate?
Yes.
You didn't review it this time, though, did you, sir?
No. I did not think it was significant.
And if that wasn't enough, Karen's lawyer pointed out a glaring error in the expert's original proposal to analyze the car. This expert had confused megabits and megabytes, which are 2 completely different data measurements. The expert admitted that, yes, his protocol was based, at least in part, on a misunderstanding of those terms. Oops. Meanwhile, the jury was furiously taking notes, all of them, except for one. One juror, according to reporters in the courtroom, still hasn't taken a single note the entire trial. Judge Beverly Cannoni decided to end the day there, dismissing the jury and calling it a night for the lawyers, too. So if the jury believes the timing data from this digital forensics expert, it is bad for Karen Reid, because the Commonwealth is now arguing that her SUV was backing up at the exact same moment that John O'Keefe's phone stopped being in use forever, within seconds. That is the kind of detail that can change minds on a jury. But here's the question. Does the jury believe the expert who lied about his own knowledge? Because after today's testimony, that expert, Shanon Burgess, is carrying some serious baggage. Misrepresented credentials, a report filed mid-trial, a copy-paste excuse, and a basic misunderstanding of tech terms like megabits and megabytes. Even I know the difference. And I really don't know science. But we'll see how the defense handles it from here. I'm Ashleigh Banfield. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. I always ask you, please subscribe, because I have been throwing down the bonus episodes like crazy, and I don't want you to miss them. If you subscribe, you'll get everything. Thanks, everyone, again. So nice to have you in the community. And please remember, the truth isn't just serious. It's drop dead serious.